In this 3-part tutorial series, we will be creating this cute monster character in Blender. So in this part, in part 1, we are going to create the base mesh for the cute monster character, and then we are going to sculpt the base body. And then in part 2, we're going to be doing all the rest of the modeling, so we'll model the other features like the eyes and the mouth and the teeth and the tongue and the hair. So by the end of part 2, the modeling will be finished. And then in part 3, we are going to be doing the lighting, and we'll be doing the rendering, and we'll also do some compositing at the end to get this really nice finished image. Now I am going to be using the Cycles render engine in this tutorial, but you could totally do this tutorial in Eevee as well. I will be using Cycles though, because I do like the extra realism in the Cycles rendering engine. Just a few things before we start. Tutorials like these are made possible thanks to my Gumroad customers and my Patreon supporters and my members on the YouTube memberships. So if you'd like to help support me and this channel to help me keep on creating Blender tutorials and Blender content, I will have the links in the description to my Gumroad store and Patreon page and the YouTube memberships. Those are all great ways to help support this channel. You can also use the super thanks feature here on YouTube to give me a little tip, and I do appreciate your support. And on my Gumroad store, you can also purchase the finished project files of this tutorial, so I will have the links in the description to that, and you can also get the finished project files on my Patreon page as well. Now we are going to be using Blender's sculpting feature to sculpt the character. So if you've never done sculpting in Blender before, then I would recommend checking out my Sculpting with Blender for Beginners tutorial. I'll have the link in the description if you'd like to check that out. And because I'm sculpting this character, I am also going to be using a drawing tablet for the sculpting. And if you're able to use a drawing tablet, then I would highly recommend that you do that. Because using a drawing tablet for sculpting is going to be much better than using a mouse, because, you know, computer mice are really just made for going around and clicking on things on the screen. But with a drawing tablet, you have much better posture, and you also have the pen pressure with the pen, and so that all is going to really help you to sculpt better. And I will be using my Huion drawing tablet, so it's a tablet where I can actually draw on the screen surface, but you definitely don't need something that fancy. Even if you can just get one of those smaller pad tablets where the pad tablet is down on the desk and then you're looking up at the screen, that is still going to be way better than using a mouse. And I will have some Amazon links in the description to some different drawing tablets that I recommend, and those are affiliate links, so if you purchase something through those links, that'll help me out, but with no extra cost to you. Alright, so let's start creating this character now. So I'm going to start by modeling a base mesh, and then we will use that base mesh to sculpt the character. And I also have my screencast keys right down here in the corner so you can see what buttons I'm pressing. And also, just so that you're aware, I use the right click select, so I use the right mouse button to select objects, but the default in Blender is the left click select, so you can just be aware of that so you aren't confused. So I'm going to press the A key a few times to make sure everything is selected. And then I'm going to press X and we are going to click on delete. So I'm going to press 1 on the numpad, and that is going to take me to front view. And to create the base body, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to go right down here to the Metaball Ball. And I'm going to add a Metaball Ball. Now if I zoom in here to the Metaball, you can see it is a little bit low quality on the edges, so I want to make it higher quality. So to do this, I'm going to click right over here on the object data properties, and then right here there's a resolution viewport and render. I just need to change the viewport, so I'm just going to drag the viewport down until it's pretty small, like a 0.05. If that's too laggy for you, if the detail's too high, then you could turn it up a bit to maybe just like a 0.1 or something. I'm going to bring it all the way down to a 0.05. So now it is nice and round and smooth. So this is going to be the head, so I want to bring this up. So I'm going to press G to grab. Let's bring it up on the Z axis, and I'm going to stick it about there. And then I also want to duplicate this and make another one for the body. So I'm going to press Shift D. Shift D will duplicate, but then I want to bring it straight down. So I'm going to hit Z to bring it down on the Z axis, and I'm going to bring it way down, and I'm going to stick it about there. Now I actually want the head to be a little bit bigger because this is kind of cartoony, a kind of cartoony monster. So I'm just going to select the top Metaball just by clicking on that outline right there, and then I can press S and we're going to scale that up and just stick it about there. So now we have the head and the body of the monster. So now let's save the Blender file. So I'm just going to click on File, and then I'm going to click on Save As. And I'm going to save this in a folder on my computer, and I'm going to call it Cute Monster Character, and then I will click on Save As. So as you're working on the project, you can press Ctrl S, and that is the shortcut key to save the Blender file. So the next thing that I want to make is the limbs, so the arms and the legs. So I'm going to press Shift A, and to create the arms and the legs, I'm going to be adding a curve. So let's go here to curve, and I'm going to add the Bezier curve. I can't really see the Bezier curve, that's because it's inside here. So I'm going to press G to grab, and then bring it down on the Z axis and stick it there. So I'm going to press the Tab key to go into edit mode, and we now have these two curves here, and the curves have handles. So we need to make this thicker because right now you can't actually see any geometry. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right here to the object data properties, and we're going to open up the geometry tab. And then I'm going to go down here, and let's open up the bevel option. And then right here on the depth, I can just turn up the depth, and that is actually going to add thickness to the curve there. So I can actually see the curve. And I'm going to press Ctrl S to save. So right here on the resolution, if I zoom in here to the side, you can see it also looks a little bit low quality. So on the resolution here, I'm just going to turn this up to like a value of 10, or maybe even like 12. Let's go with 12. So it is pretty high quality. So now what I can do is I can just select these handles, and I can kind of rotate them and move them around. So I'm going to press R to rotate and G to grab, and I'm going to bring this up here, and this is going to be the first leg. So I'll press R to rotate and G to grab, just kind of bring that down, and I'm going to go to the side here, and I want to rotate this so that the leg is kind of going forward just a little bit, and then his knee would be there, and then the monster's leg is going back down, and make the leg pretty straight up and down. All right, and I can just select the handles by clicking on those little dots, and you can press R to rotate those handles. All right, so that is pretty good. Now I do want to make the depth a bit bigger. So right here on the depth, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and then I can click and drag on the depth value, and that is going to make it thicker. And then I'm just going to make those limbs a little bit thicker, and then I need to bring them in a little bit. Now I want the leg to be a bit thinner down here, but then I want it to be a little bit thicker up here. So what you can do is you can just select a handle, and then you can press Alt S. So Alt S is going to change the size of that handle. So I can just press Alt S, make that smaller, and stick it there. And then I can select the top here, and I can press Alt S and make that a little bit bigger and stick it there. So now the leg gets a little bit thinner as it goes down. And I think I want to bring the leg down so it's just a little bit longer. So something like that. All right, so I can press the Tab key, and that'll go back to object mode. So I want to mirror this over to the other side so that we have two legs. So just select the object, make sure you are in object mode, and I'm going to go right over here to the modifier properties, and I'm going to click on Add Modifier, and we're going to go right down here under Generate, and we're going to add a Mirror Modifier. So now it is mirroring those over to both sides. So if I tab into edit mode, I could bring this around, scale it, or do whatever I want, and it's going to mirror it to the other side. So the legs are the same on both sides. Now if for some reason it's not mirroring it over to the other side, that is because the objects are mirrored from where the object's origin is. And you can see the object's origin is in the very center. But if you move the object over, then it may not be mirroring correctly. So to fix this, you can use the mirror object. So you can click right here on the eyedropper, and then you can just select the Metaball. And then now if I move this around, you can see even if I'm moving this in object mode, I am moving the object's origin, but it is staying there in the center. So you can use the mirror object option if your origin point got moved. So let's select the object, and I'm going to press the Tab key to go back into edit mode. So I want to duplicate this now and make the arms. So press the A key a few times to make sure both of those handles are selected. And then I can press 1 on the numpad, and that is going to go to front view. So I can now press Shift D. Shift D is going to duplicate this. And then I'm also going to double tap the R key. That's going to turn on the trackball rotation. And I'm going to rotate the arms over and then kind of rotate them over sideways. And I might scale them down a bit and kind of bring them in there. And I want to have the arms pretty high up. I think it looks kind of cute. It makes the monster look more cute if the arms are higher up rather than being lower. So I'm going to stick them up like that. All right, and then I'm going to select this handle here, and I want to make this a bit thinner. So I'll first press S to scale it down a little bit, and then I can press Alt S, and Alt S is going to change the size of that. So it's going to make it less thick. And then I can select this handle. Let's rotate this handle and bring it over. And then I can scale the handle up a bit, and we're going to make that a bit longer. So you can see if I scale the handle, it's going to make this more sharp here. So this handle between this handle, it's going to be more sharp. I'm just going to scale that down a little bit. I don't want it to be too sharp. Kind of bring it down. And then again, I can press Alt S, and Alt S is going to make that thickness smaller there. All right, that's pretty good. Let's press Control S again to save, and I can press the Tab key to go back to object mode. So I now want to create the hands. So what I'm first going to do is press Shift S. Shift S is going to bring up this pie menu, and I'm going to move my mouse over to Cursor to World Origin, and then let go of the Shift and S button. That's just going to ensure that this 3D cursor is in the very center of the 3D scene. So now that that's in the center there, I can press Shift A, and I'm going to go here to Mesh, and I can add a cube. And because this 3D cursor was in the very center there, it was added into the very center of the scene. So wherever the 3D cursor is, that is where new objects are going to appear. So I'm going to press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and then I'm going to zoom in here, and I can press the Tab key to go into edit mode. So I can press G to grab. Let's bring this over. And something that's important to notice is that I am moving this over in edit mode, and that way the object's origin, which is that little orange dot there, stays in the center. And that way when I add the mirror modifier, it's going to mirror it over to the other side. So I'm going to press S to scale and G to grab, and I'm going to stick this down here, and we're going to make that hand. Let's also press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, and then you can't see it because it's on the other side. So actually what I can do real quick is press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. I can press G to grab, bring it over here, just stick it there, and then I can press 3 on the numpad for side view, and now we can see that. So I'm going to press S to scale, and I want to make it thinner, so I'm going to scale this on the Y-axis, so you can hit Y, and I'm going to scale that down and stick it there. So this is basically going to be the palm of the monster's hand. And then let's press 1 on the numpad to go back to front view. Now I want to add some loop cuts so that we can extrude out some fingers. So I'm going to press Control R, and you can see a loop cut appears, and I'm going to scroll my mouse up until there are 2, and then I can left click and then right click so they stay there in the center. So now what I'm going to do is navigate right down here, and I'm going to actually press the A key to select everything, and I'm going to scale this up a bit on the X-axis so it's a bit longer. And then I can scale the whole thing down, and I want to scale this up so that this here is about a square. So it doesn't have to be exact, something like that's pretty good. So I'm going to now select this vertex, hold down the Shift key, and select this vertex. And then I want to press Control B. That is going to add a manual bevel, and this is going to give a little bit of space between each finger. So I can now select this vertex, hold down the Shift key, select this vertex, and I can press Control B, just add a bevel there, and then place that there. And then I'm going to go right over here to the face select mode, and I can just select this face, and then I can press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. So I can now press E to extrude, and we are going to extrude down one of the fingers, press R to rotate, and G to grab, stick that there, and scale it down a little bit. So it's kind of going away from the rest of the hand a little bit. And then I can press E to extrude and scale that down, stick that there. All right, so let's do the same thing. So I'm going to select this face right here. I'll press 1 on the numpad for front view, E to extrude, and you could scale this down a little bit, and then we will extrude it again, scale it down a little bit, and then navigate down here. We're just going to select this face. I'm going to press 1 on the numpad for front view again, and I can press E to extrude, G to grab, and rotate that a little bit. And I'll scale it down a little bit, and then we can extrude that out a second time and scale it down. All right, so something like that. Now, this does look very blocky, but we're going to be adding a Subdivision Surface modifier to smooth it out, and then of course we will be sculpting the hand later. And then let's also select this face right here, and I'm going to press G and Z, and I'm going to bring this up, and then I can also scale this face, and let's scale it on the X-axis and make it a bit longer. All right, and then I want to add a thumb here, so I'm going to press Control R, and Control R is going to add a loop cut, and I can left click and right click just to add a loop cut right there. So I can now go right here to the face select, and then I can select this face, and let's press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. So I can scale the whole thing up a bit, and then I can press E to extrude. Let's rotate this and bring it over a little bit, and then I can extrude it out again. Let's rotate this and bring it over and scale it down a bit. And I'm not too worried about getting the exact shape because we are going to be sculpting this as well, but just getting kind of the basic shape there. And I think I need to press the A key to select everything, and I'm going to scale the whole thing down just a little. All right, so I'm going to tab to go back to object mode, and I now want to add the mirror modifier to mirror it over to the other side, and then also the subsurf modifier. So let's click on add modifier, and let's go right down here and add the mirror modifier, and then you can just make sure the X axis axis is turned on, and that's going to mirror it over to the other side. Now, again, if for some reason it isn't mirroring it over properly, you can use the mirror object like I talked about earlier. And then to add the subdivision surface modifier, you could add it right here, or you can use the shortcut key, which is Control 2. So Control 2 will add the subdivision surface modifier, or you can also press Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and Control 4, and that is going to change the levels viewport. I actually want to turn it all the way up to 4, and that way it is higher quality. Now you can see right here where the wrist is, it does get a little bit thinner. So to fix this, I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then I can press Control R to add a loop cut. We're going to add a loop cut right there on the top, and I can left click and then right click so it stays in the center. Then I can press S to scale, and we're going to scale this out, and we're just going to make that a bit bigger. Now this is really not the best topology for actual poly modeling, but I really don't need the topology to be that nice because we are going to be sculpting this. We're just using this as a base mesh, and we're going to apply the subdivision surface modifier and sculpt it later. Now I also want to rotate the entire hand over so it's going more back and forth. So in edit mode, I'm going to press the A key to select everything, and I can press R to rotate. Let's hit Z to rotate it on the Z axis, and I'm going to rotate this over like that. And then I can also rotate it sideways a little bit so that the fingers are going slightly away from the body. Just kind of rotate it like that, and also bring it over a little bit. So I want the thumbs to be going forward, but also I want the thumbs to be going in towards the body just a little bit. So you can just find a natural pose that looks pretty good. And then I also want to have the fingers just kind of going in slightly. So I'm going to go right here to the face select mode, and then I can select this face, and then I can hold down the shift key and select these other faces. So I can now press R to rotate and G to grab, and I'm going to rotate this and bring it over, just kind of rotate it like that so that the fingers are going in slightly. And that does look a bit more natural. And then also I do think the entire hand is just a little bit too big, so I'm going to tab into edit mode, press the A key to select everything, and I can scale the whole thing down. So use the S key to scale, and I'm just going to like stick that in there. So that is a bit better. Let's press Control S again to save. Alright, so let's now create the base mesh for the feet. So again, I'm going to hold down the Shift and S button, and I'm going to move my mouse over to the cursor to world origin. That'll make sure that this 3D cursor here is in the very center. You can also press Shift S, and that'll do the same thing. And when you press Shift S, it's also going to center your view to the 3D scene. So I'm going to press Shift A, and let's go here to mesh, and I'm going to add another cube, and then I'm going to press G to grab. Let's hit Z. We're going to bring this down on the Z axis and stick it there. And then remember, I do want to add the mirror modifier, so I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode, and I can press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it over here and scale it down. So because I'm bringing this over in edit mode, the origin point is going to stay in the center there. And I'm going to scale this down and just kind of stick it right there. And then I'm just going to click right here to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face. And I'm going to press E to extrude. We're going to extrude this whole thing out and just make the foot there. And then I can also click right here to go to the edge select, and I can just select this edge, and I can press G and Z, and we're going to bring the edge down so that the foot goes down a little bit. And then also right here, I want to have kind of a gap here where the foot is and kind of give it a bit more of a shape. So I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut. I can left click, and then I'm going to drag over, and then left click again to stick that loop cut right there. So I can now press Control R. Control R again is going to add a loop cut, and I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out until there are 2 loop cuts, and then I can left click and right click so they stay in the center. Then I can press S to scale, and we're going to scale the whole thing down a bit. Alright, so let's press the tab key to go back to object mode. Now this is very blocky, so to smooth it out, I'm going to press Control 4, or you can also click here and add modifier, and you can add the subdivision surface. Alright, so now I kind of need to play around with the shape again, so I'm going to tab into edit mode, press the A key to make sure everything is selected, and I can press G to grab, and let's bring this back on the Y axis and stick it there, maybe bring it up a little bit as well. And then I also want to make the bottom of the feet flat, so I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut, and then move your mouse right here, and you can left click, drag way down, not all the way down, but pretty close to the bottom, and then left click again. So now that is starting to look more like a shoe. And then this is a bit long as well, so I'm going to press the A key again to select everything. Let's scale everything down on the Z axis. So S to scale, bring it down on the Z axis. And then I also want to make the foot a bit wider. So I'm going to scale this on the X axis, and we're going to make that a bit wider. And you could also scale it down on the Y axis if you wanted to. And I'm going to bring it over here, just like that. And maybe bring it down just a little. All right, so that is looking pretty good. So I want to give this a mirror modifier as well. So let's click on add modifier. We can go right down here under generate, and I'm going to add the mirror modifier. And then I want him to be in a very natural pose. So I want to make the feet slightly going out. So I'm going to press R to rotate. Let's rotate this on the Z axis. And then I'm going to bring this over. So the feet are just kind of pointed away from each other a little bit. Press the tab key to go back to object mode, and that's looking pretty good. So with this object selected, you can use the object context menu to shade the object smooth. And then also right up here, select this object, and then you can use the object context menu to shade it smooth. You can also just click right here on object, and then you go right down here and click on shade smooth. So let's press Ctrl S to save. So now let's create the base mesh for the ears. So again, I'm going to press Shift S, move my mouse to the cursor to world origin and let go. And then I can press Shift A. Let's go here to mesh, and I'm going to add a cube. And then I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode, press G to grab, bring this over in edit mode, and then I can scale this down. Bring it over here, and then I also want to scale it back and forth, so I will scale this on the y-axis. We're going to make that more thin, and then also scale this again on the x-axis and make it a bit thinner this way. Press G to grab, and we're just going to stick the cube here inside the side of the head. And then also let's click on add modifier. Let's go right down here, and we're going to add the mirror modifier so it mirrors it over to the other side. And then I want to make this a bit more thin, so I'll press S to scale. Let's scale this down on the y-axis and make that a bit thinner. And I can scale the whole thing down. All right, so I'm now going to select this face right here. We need to go to the face select, so click right here to the face select, and then I can select this face. And I'm going to press 7 on the numpad so I can go to top view. So I can press R to rotate and G to grab. We're going to bring this in a bit, and then I can press E to extrude and R to rotate and G to grab. And we're just going to kind of make that ear start to go back. And E to extrude, we're going to extrude that out. And then let's press 1 on the numpad for front view, and I'm going to press S to scale. Let's hit Z to bring it up on the Z axis. We're going to make that bigger, and then G and Z, and we're going to bring this up. So basically we are making the pointy ear for the little monster. So I'm going to press E to extrude this out, and then I can scale this up on the Z axis as well, kind of like that. And then let's also press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. I'm going to left click and then right click so it stays right there. And then I'm going to make sure I'm in the edge select mode, and then I'm going to select this edge. I can press G to grab, and I'm just going to kind of bring it up there and kind of shape the ear. I could also select this and bring it down a little bit, and I could select this one and maybe bring it up a little bit. So let's press the tab key to go back to object mode, and then I'm going to press Control 3. That's going to add a subdivision surface modifier with 3 levels. And then I want to kind of sharpen some things up. So let's tab it back into edit mode. And what I'm first going to do is go to the edge select and just select this edge, and I want to make this a bit sharper. So I'm going to press G to grab, and let's bring this up and make it sharper. And then I'm also going to navigate right up here to the top, and then I can press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, left click and right click so it stays there in the center, and then I can tab back into object mode. So that's looking pretty good. We have some basic ears there. I think I will bring them down on the Z axis just a little bit. And then using the object context menu, I can just shade the object smooth. And that is it. So the base mesh is finished. So we can now get this ready for sculpting. So in order to sculpt this character, we need to turn all of the geometry into mesh geometry, and then we need to join it all together into one object. And then we also need to join together any areas, because you can see right in here for objects like this, there's some cut through. So we're going to use Blender's remesh option to fix that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to convert this object to mesh, because right now it is a curve object. It's not an actual mesh with geometry. And also this object here, this is just a metaball. So what I'm going to do is just press B for the box select and just box select all of the objects. I'm now going to click on Object, and let's go down here to Convert, and I'm going to convert to Mesh. All right, so now if I press the Tab key to go into edit mode, you can see it's all geometry now, and it's also applied the mirror modifiers and the subsurf modifiers. So we basically just applied all the modifiers, and we have turned these objects into mesh objects. So it's not a metaball anymore, it's actual geometry, and this object here, this is not a curve, it is actual geometry. Now I want to sculpt the entire thing at once, so we're going to need to join this together into one object. So again, press B for the box select. We're just going to box select all the objects, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the body last. I'm now going to press Ctrl J, and so because I selected the body last, all of these objects are going to be joined together into the body object. Now if I tried to sculpt this, there would be a lot of problems, because if I zoom in here, you can see there's some faces which are inside the mesh, and it's not all connected, and it's not all one piece of geometry. So we are going to remesh this object so that, for instance, the ear will be fully connected with the body, and all the other parts will be fully connected together, so there isn't any overlapping. So to do this, just make sure you have the object selected, and I'm going to go right over here to Blender's Sculpting tab. All right, so now to remesh the sculpt, we're going to click on the remesh options right here, and you can see here are the remesh options. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to change the size or the amount of detail of the geometry that it's going to remesh. So to be able to preview this better, just hover your mouse in the 3D space and make sure you are in the sculpt mode when you do this. I'm now going to press Shift R. So when you press Shift R, it's going to show you a grid, and you can drag your mouse back and forth. And this is going to change the amount of detail that it'll actually add when it remeshes the sculpt. So each of these little squares in the grid are going to be one face. So that is the size of the faces. So you can drag this to whatever you want, but I would make it pretty detailed because we do want it to keep its shape. So I'm just going to go with a detail like that, just click to place that. And then you can press Shift R again if you need to change that, and then click to place it. So now to remesh, you can press Ctrl R. So Ctrl R is going to remesh it, and you can see it kind of paused for a moment, but now you can see it's remeshed the sculpt. So if you look here where the joints are, you can see it's merged that all together. It looks nice and smooth, and also right over here as well, it's all nice and smooth and connected. And if you go inside here, you can see this is all one object. So now this object is great for sculpting. So before we start sculpting, let's just press Ctrl S again to save, and then I'm going to bring this over to my Huion screen drawing tablet, and we'll get started with the sculpting. And you can use a mouse for the sculpting if you don't have a drawing tablet, but I would recommend using a drawing tablet if you're able to. Alright, so I've moved Blender over to my drawing tablet, and I have my drawing tablet pen and also this little drawing glove, and I really like using the drawing tablet glove because when I move my hand on the drawing tablet surface, it moves very smoothly. And again, if you've never done sculpting in Blender before, you can also check out my Sculpting with Blender for Beginners tutorial. I'll have the link in the description to that. So before I actually start with the sculpting, I do want to change the layout just because there's a few things that I want to change. So the first thing that I want to do is get rid of this side panel because I don't really use it. I just use all of the features which are right up here. So I'm going to press down with my pen when the crosshair appears, and then I can drag down and then let go to close that side panel. And then also right here, I can click, drag over, and then let go to close the side panel. And then the other thing that I want to do is I want to turn on the symmetry, and that way when I sculpt on one side, it'll be mirrored over to the other side. So to do this, I'm going to click on this X button right here, and now when I move my pen around, you can see there's that other little circle right there on the other side, and if I start to sculpt, you can see it's mirroring it over. I'm just going to press Ctrl Z though to undo that. Now I also want to turn on the Dyn Topo, so you can see right here it says Dyn Topo, and this feature is going to add geometry as we sculpt. So if we want to zoom in and sculpt a more detailed area, it's going to add more geometry as we sculpt. So I'm going to click on the check mark right here, and that is going to turn the Dyn Topo on, and then I can click right here on the Dyn Topo settings, and this detail size, if you turn it to a smaller number, it's going to be more detailed. Now if you make it too detailed, it's going to be a bit laggy when you sculpt. So for something like this, I'm just going to go with like a value of 4. You could also try like 5 or 6 or 7 or something, whatever works best for you. But now if I zoom in here and if I start to sculpt, you can see it's adding geometry as we sculpt. And if I zoom in closer and then sculpt again, you can see there's even more detail. I'm just going to press Ctrl Z though to undo that. Right here on the Dyntopo settings, I have the detailing set to a relative detail, and that way when I zoom in and then sculpt, it's going to add more detail. Now I also want to change the matte cap because I don't really like how the matte cap is. So to change the matte cap, I'm going to click right up here in the corner, click on this little drop down arrow. You can see we have some different settings here for the lighting. So I'm going to click on matte cap, and then I'm going to click right here, and I've added in a bunch of matte caps, and some of these matte caps I've actually created myself, and I do have a tutorial that I made a while back on how to create your own matte caps for Blender. So if you'd like to check out that tutorial, I'll have the link in the description. So I like to use a matte cap which is built into Blender. It is this one right here, so you should have this one. You won't have a lot of these because I've added in my own matte caps, but you should have this one right here, this red one, and I really like this for sculpting because I think it allows me to see the shape of the mesh better. Now there is a couple more settings. I want to click right here to go to the clay strips brush, and then on the clay strips brush, I want to click on brush, and I'm going to go way down here, and I want to turn on accumulate and also front faces only. And then also I'm going to click right here to go to the draw brush, and then I'm going to click right here on brush, and I'm going to go right down here, and on the draw brush as well, I want to turn on accumulate and front faces only. And I do actually have a specific video on how I set up Blender for sculpting, where I kind of go over all these different settings. So if you'd like to check out that video on how I set up Blender for sculpting, I'll have the link in the description. So I'm going to start off by going to the clay strips brush. This is my favorite brush for sculpting. And then I'm going to zoom into the ear, and I'm going to start by going around on all these sharp edges, and I'm going to kind of smooth that out. So I'm going to start to go back and forth here, and I'm just going to add more clay there, just kind of going around in circles or going back and forth. We're going to kind of make that seamless so it actually looks like the ear is a part of the head. Just going along there, and then you can hold down the shift key, and when you hold down the shift key and then sculpt, it's going to activate the smooth brush. So after you sculpt, you can hold down the shift key and just lightly smooth out wherever you've sculpted. All right, so I'm now going to navigate over here to the back, and then I'm going to add more clay here, kind of go back and forth, add more geometry so you can see it's a bit more detailed, and then hold down the shift key and lightly smooth that out. So I'm just lightly pressing down on the tablet surface and just smoothing that out with the shift key pressed. All right, that's pretty good. Just kind of zoom out there. Make sure to look around at your sculpt from different angles to make sure you're getting the shapes right, because if you just look at one angle, then you might move to a different angle and realize that the shape was a bit off. So I'm going to smooth that all out there. All right, and then right here as well, you can see it does look like a little bit blocky. So I'm going to make my brush bigger, so I can press the F key. The F key is going to make my brush bigger. I have my keyboard right next to me, right down here on my desk, so I can use the Control and Shift key and use the other shortcut keys. So I'm going to press the F key, make my brush bigger, and then place there. Or you can also change the radius and strength, so the radius is going to change the brush size. So now that my brush is really big, I'm just going to go along here and add a bit more clay, and then hold down the Shift key and go back and kind of smooth it out. Maybe make my brush just a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to add a bit more clay and then kind of smooth it out. And you can see here is where it's smooth, so that looks a lot better. Whereas right up here, you can kind of see there's almost like a texture there. So that's why I'm just lightly going around the mesh and just kind of adding a bit more geometry and then smoothing that out. Or you could also just hold down the Shift key and go along here on all these places and just kind of smooth out the geometry. And then make sure to press Control S every now and then to save the Blender file. So I'm going to press the F key, make my brush a little bit smaller, place it there, and then just go along here and just add a little bit more clay. Or you don't even really have to add more clay, you could just go around and smooth it out. It is kind of nice though to add a little bit more geometry so that the mesh has a bit more to work with and it makes it a bit smoother. So I'm just going to continue to do that, going all the way around the character, just adding a bit more geometry, and then I'm just going to smooth that out. And right up here as well, let's add a bit more clay and then smooth that out. So you can see now the front of the character looks much more smooth. And let's navigate to the back here, kind of to the back of the head. We're going to do the same thing. So just add a little bit more geometry. I'm just very lightly pressing with my pen, and then you can hold down the Shift key and smooth it out. And this is really where it would be pretty hard to do this with a mouse. You totally can try it if you want to, but I would really recommend using a drawing tablet for sculpting if you're able to, because you can use the pen pressure. So when you press harder, that is going to tell Blender that you want to put down more clay. And that setting is turned on because of this setting right here. So you can see that says strength pressure. So enable tablet pressure sensitivity for strength. So if you want to turn that off for some reason, you could click on that button, but I like to keep it on. All right, so let's go along here, just lightly pressing and adding a little bit more clay. And then I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm just kind of going around in circles and lightly smoothing it out. Let's go up here on the side, kind of behind the ear, just adding a bit more clay and then smoothing that out. All right, let's go here to the front, do the same thing, just adding a bit more clay there, and then smoothing that all out. I'm just holding down the shift key, and that activates the smooth brush, and then I can smooth that out. All right, so now let's combine the rest of the limbs to the body. So I'm gonna press the F key, make my brush a bit smaller, and I can zoom in here, and then I can just kind of go back and forth, or I can go side to side, or I can also kind of go around in circles. And I'm just gonna add a bit more clay there, just so that the legs actually look like they are connected to the body. So go along there and kind of make that less sharp, make it more of a smooth transition from the legs into the body. And then once you've added clay all around there, you can just hold down the shift key and lightly smooth that out, kind of going around in circles, pressing down lightly, and we're just going to smooth out the geometry so it looks a lot nicer. And go to the front here and just hold down the shift key and smooth that out. I'm going to add a bit more clay here on the front and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. And then let's do the same thing for the arms. So I'm going to go to where the shoulders are, and I'm just going to go along here and add a bit more clay, go around here on the bottom, add a bit more clay there and around on the side. And I'm just going to add more clay all around there so that there's a smoother transition, and then hold down the shift key and just go along there and smooth that all out. All right, so I now want to do the same thing for the wrists. So let's zoom in here to the wrists, and then I'm gonna go along here and add clay, kind of filling that seam there. Kind of go back and forth and add a bunch of clay there and here as well. And then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. So just go along there with the shift key held down, and then I can just navigate over here, hold down the shift key and just smooth that all out. And this way they actually look seamless. They actually look like they're one piece. And then also right here up the arm, and then also going up the arm. And then also I do want to add more geometry and more detail to the arm. So I'm just going to go along here, adding some clay there, and then just hold down the shift key and you can smooth that out, kind of smooth out that arm, going back and forth there. All right. And then back in here, behind the arm, you can just kind of go down here to the bottom so you can see that better. Hold down the shift key and just kind of smooth that out. All right, and then right here on the fingers, for this, I can just hold down the shift key and smooth that out, and that'll do a pretty good job. Just kind of smooth that out there. And then I want to kind of shape the hand a little bit better. So to shape the hand better, I'm going to press the G key, or you can also click right here to go to the grab brush. And I can press the F key to make my brush bigger. So I can now just kind of click and tap, and I'm going to kind of change the shape of the hand a little bit. So this part which is sticking out, I want to kind of bring that back a little bit. And then I also want to go right over here kind of to the front, and I want to pull out the top of the hand, kind of pull that out just a little bit. And then also maybe push this in a little bit, and also maybe bring the thumb down and bring it in towards the hand a little bit more. I could also kind of tap right here and kind of push those fingers out a little bit, just so that they have a little bit more of an interesting shape. So the grab brush is really good to kind of change the shape of your sculpt. So now I'm going to go right here to the clay strips brush, and then again I'm just going to go along here and add any more geometry where it might need it. Add some more geometry here, just add some more clay there, and then hold down the shift key and kind of smooth that out. And go along those fingers, holding down the shift key and lightly smoothing that out, and then just go along there and add more clay where you need it. And over here on the back, I'm just going to smooth that out there. Now you can see because of the monster's body, it is a bit hard to get to this side of the hand. So if you want to have a better view of this hand, what you can do is you can press Alt B, and once you press Alt B, you can click and drag, or in my case, tap and drag with my pen, and I'm going to drag a box around the hand and then let go. And this is going to hide everything except what was in the box. So I can now zoom over to this side of the hand, and I can just start to sculpt, and you can see we have a much better view because it's basically just hiding the body. But the body is still there, it's just hidden from our view. So I'm just going to go along here and add more clay, and then just hold down the shift key and smooth that out. And then once you're done and you want to see the entire character again, you can press Alt B again, and Alt B is going to unhide everything. Let's press Ctrl S again to save the Blender file. Alright, so now let's sculpt the ears and add more detail to the ears. So I'm just going to navigate up here to the ears, and the first thing that I want to do is change the shape a little bit. So to do that, I can press G for the grab brush. And then what I can do is I can kind of tap and I can kind of pull this around. So I want to kind of bring down the earlobe a bit, and then I want to bring this in a little bit. And then right out here, I'm going to push this out a little bit to kind of give it the shape of an ear. So something like that. And then I also want to make this a bit more spiky. So let's just kind of pull this out and kind of sharpen that up and just make it a little bit more pokey. So let's zoom in here, and I want to add a little bit more shape to the ear. So I'm going to go right here to the clay strips brush, and I'm just going to zoom in, and then I can just go along here, and I'm first just going to go along and add a bit more clay all the way around the outer edge just to kind of thicken that up a bit. So just go along there and add just a strip of clay, go along there. All right, and let's also go to the back side of it, and then I can go along there and just kind of give all of the ear a little bit more thickness on the back there. So I'm just going around back and forth, adding more clay there, just thickening up the ear. Then I can hold down the shift key, and I'm just gonna smooth everything out, just like that. And let's go back to the front here, and I can smooth this area out. So hold down the shift key as you sculpt. That's going to activate the smooth brush. You could go over to the smooth brush, but it's much quicker just to use the shortcut key, which is holding down the shift key. And then also smooth up here as well, to kind of smooth that out. All right, so let's just look back out here. I want to kind of look at the entire thing, see if I like the shape of that. I think what I want to do is zoom in here. I'm going to press G for the grab brush. I'm just going to navigate to the top here, and I'm just going to push the ear in slightly more towards the face. So something like that, maybe push that in a little bit. And I'm kind of zooming out and looking around to kind of see how I like that from farther away. Zoom in there, maybe I'll bring that down, something like that. Maybe round that out just a little bit. All right, so I now want to cut into the ear to kind of give it that shape. So let's go to the clay strips brush, and then to cut into the mesh, I'm going to hold down the control key, and this way it's going to get rid of clay instead of adding clay. So hold down the control key. We're just going to kind of carve away inside the ear and just go along here, just kind of cut in, and I might need to zoom in a little bit and just kind of go down the ear there. And then also I could just add a little bit of clay here to kind of round that out. And then hold down the control key, and I can kind of push in the clay. And then I can hold down the shift key, and I can just smooth everything out there. So just hold down the shift key, smooth that out. I don't want to smooth it out too much because I don't want to get rid of all the detail. So I'm just lightly holding down the shift key and smoothing that out. And then hold down the control key and go in there. And holding down the control key, I can just kind of go back and forth there, push that in. Pushed in a little bit more. Now I don't want to push it so much that it actually goes through the other side of the ear. I wouldn't want to do that. So don't push it too far in, but just a little bit like that, going around there. And then hold down the shift key, and you can just kind of smooth it out around the actual shape. So around the curve of the object, instead of just going back and forth or whatever, you can kind of go along the shape of that, and that'll help to keep its shape. So that way you're not getting rid of this little bump there that we made along the ridge of the ear. Now I do think I want to change the shape of the ear just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is press the G key to go back to the grab brush. And you can see the ear is pretty straight, and I want to make it a bit more round to kind of make it seem a bit more cartoony, kind of give it that cartoony style. So I'm just going to kind of tap with my pen here, maybe even push that up a little bit. I'm going to try to make the ear a bit more round, and then also maybe make the earlobe a little bit smaller, because I do think that earlobe is a little bit big. And you could also kind of zoom in here to where the pointy part is and just kind of pull that out to make it slightly more pointy, but just trying to get kind of that cartoony shape. And I like how those ears are looking, so I'm going to call that finished. Make sure to press Ctrl S again to save the Blender file. So we still need to do the legs and the feet, so let's do that. So I'm going to zoom down here, and you can see this is kind of looking sharp. So I'm just going to go along here and just add a little bit of clay. You can kind of zoom out when you do this. We don't need to add a ton of detail, but I do want to add more detail. So I'm just going to go along here and add more clay, and then hold down the shift key, and we can smooth that out. That's looking very good. So I'm just going along here and then holding down the shift key and smoothing that out. And I'm just going down with the leg so that it kind of keeps its shape. And I'm just very lightly smoothing it out because I don't really want to smooth out the entire shape. It is pretty much already the shape that I want, but I just want to smooth out the geometry a bit. All right, that's pretty good. And right here on the back, we can kind of add more clay here. And also we want the legs to look like they're actually connected to the feet. So I'm just going to go along here and add more clay, just kind of connecting that so it's not as sharp of an angle. So I'm just kind of going back and forth or up and down, going along here. I could also go around that shape just to kind of add more clay, just kind of smooth it out. All right, so I'm just going along here, and then you can just go back and hold down the shift key and kind of lightly smooth that all out. And that'll make it really look like it's connected to the feet more, and smoothing out that last bit there. All right, let's zoom out, take a look at that. That is pretty good. So let's kind of improve the shape of the feet. So one thing that I want to do is make this crease a bit bigger. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and then I'm going to sculpt around, just kind of go around in circles or just go back and forth. And that's just going to make the crease bigger. And by holding down the control key, it's going to push the clay in instead of bringing the clay out. I just want to make that a bit stronger because I want to give it kind of a cartoony foot shape. So going along there, and then I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to press a little bit harder just because I want that to be a bit more smooth. I want that crease there to be a little bit more subtle so you can't see it as well. So I'm gonna just kind of go back and forth there, kind of make big long strokes going back and forth there, kind of zoom out, see how that is looking. I think it's really helpful every now and then to kind of zoom out and see how your sculpt looks from farther away so you can kind of get a better idea of the overall shape. And they kind of look like shoes. They almost look like little work boots or something. So I'm going to zoom into the bottom now, and let's do the bottom a little bit. So I'm first just going to hold down the shift key and kind of smooth that out a little bit. Smooth that out. And then I can just kind of go along here and kind of where the heels and the toes would be. I want to just push the clay out a little bit. So I'm just going to add a bit more clay there. I could even zoom out a little bit to do this. And then also right here where the back of the foot would be, just kind of push that out a little bit. And that way the bottoms of the feet will just be a little bit more round. And then I can hold down the shift key and just go around in circles and lightly smooth it out. So I'm just very lightly pressing down with my tablet, kind of going around in circles and just smoothing out the bottoms of the feet. I do want the bottoms of the feet to come down a little bit more though. So something like that, just kind of going along the edge here and kind of smoothing that out there. And then right here again, you can see it's a little bit sharp. So I'm just going to go along here, adding a tiny bit of clay. It's almost like we're adding just like a tiny little layer of clay and giving it a bit more geometry and detail. Just going along there. And also up here as well, I can kind of go back and forth. And then I can just hold down the shift key and just go in little circles and lightly press down. We're just going to smooth out the feet there. All right, again, I'm going to zoom out, kind of take a look at this. So that is looking pretty good. All right, so zoom out here. Let's press Control S to save. That is looking really good. So the base mesh is almost done of the character's body, but we still need to add the mouth. So let's add the mouth now. So I'm going to zoom in here, kind of zoom into where the face is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using the clay strips brush because I want to bring out the mouth a little bit before I cut back in. So I'm going to press the F key, make my brush a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to have the mouth be kind of right here where the bottom of the ear is, where it's connecting to the face. So I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to add a little bit. Let's press the F key, make your brush smaller, and then just add a little bit of clay there. And we're going to start to create basically the top lip. So I'm going to go along here. We're first going to have it come down. So just go along there, just add a little bit of a bump there going down, and then it's going to rotate up. So he's going to have kind of a funny little grin on his face. So down and then up. So we're just making that nice grin there, that little smile there. That's looking pretty good. Let's zoom out, see how that is looking. Bring that down a little bit more and then bring it up a little bit sooner. So I'm just going to kind of fix that, go along there. And then I need to hold down the shift key and I need to smooth out the top of it. And actually, I want to add a bit more clay on the top of it just so that his upper lip can kind of come out farther, because basically his upper lip is just kind of coming out a little bit farther. His upper lip is in front of his bottom lip, and then his teeth and his tongue will come out as well. So I'm just going to add some clay here on the top. So I'm just kind of going back and forth. So the top lip is going to be a bit bigger, and then just hold down the shift key and smooth that out. We still want the crease there on the bottom, but on the top here, I'm just going to hold down the shift key and smooth that out. All right, let's press Control S again to save the file. All right, so you can start to see kind of the smile there, or the grin that he has. I do think I want to play around with the shape of it just a little bit. So I'm going to press G for the grab brush, and then I can just kind of tap around here. Just kind of tap around, and I'm going to kind of change the shape of that a little bit. So you can just kind of play around with the grin. I think I want to bring it all forward a little bit, bring the whole thing just a little bit more forward. All right, so that is looking a lot better. I like that smile. So I now want to crease in the bottom and make it stronger. So I'm going to go right here to the crease brush. We can use the crease brush to cut into the mesh and add a little crease. So I'm going to just go along here, go along the bottom of the lip, and I'm just going to start to push that in. And you can see as I sculpt, it's kind of making a crease there. So it's sharpening that up so we can see that grin a lot better. And now there's more of a shadow there. Because of that matte cap, we can kind of see a shadow there. So I'm going to go along here, just kind of push that in. And you can see we kind of have a bit of a bottom lip, but I don't want much of a bottom lip. I don't want to be able to see it very well. So to kind of get rid of that, I'm going to go back here to the clay strips brush, and then I can press the F key and make my brush a little bit bigger. And then I want to push that in a little bit. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm just going to push that in a little bit. So push down the bottom lip. I don't want to push it way in, but I do want to push it in a little bit. And this will help to give more definition to the top lip because the bottom lip will be going back in a little bit. So there's going to be a bit more depth there on the side. So go along there, kind of push back in the clay. And then once you've done that, it's going to be pretty rough. So just hold down the shift key and kind of smooth that all out there. Smooth that out, but don't smooth where the crease is, because if you smooth that out, it's going to get rid of the crease. Just lightly go along the bottom of the lip, but don't actually smooth out the lip crease. All right, so I'm just going to smooth that out there. All right, let's zoom out, kind of look around at this. That's pretty good. Let's press Control S again to save. All right, so I now want to zoom in here, and I want to go back to the crease brush. So now that I have the crease brush again, I can go along here and again, just kind of sharpen that up. So I'm going to go along there, go along there. All right, crease that in. And then also right here, I want to make the very end of the lip just be a little bit more sharper. So I basically want to sharpen up this right here. So if you normally just sculpt with the crease brush, that's going to push in the clay. But if you hold down the control key and then sculpt, it's actually going to bring out the clay. So I'm going to Control Z that. So what I'm going to do is hold down the control key, and then I'm going to go along here where the lip is coming out the most. And I'm going to go along here, and you can see it's sharpening up that lip. So we're defining that shape better. So this way we're going to be able to see the lip a lot better. There's going to be kind of this face right here underneath the lip. So just hold down the control key and just kind of pop that out there. And then I do want to smooth this out, but I do want to be careful because I don't want to get rid of the detail that I added. So I'm just going to hold down the shift key, and I'm just going to sculpt along that bottom ridge there that we created. And also you could kind of sculpt the top of it as well, and also a little bit of the bottom as well. So now you can see it's much more defined. You can see that's actually popping out a bit more, and there's more of a ridge down there. And so this is where like the tongue and the teeth are going to kind of pop out, and they're going to hang down there underneath the mouth. Let's press Control S again to save. All right, now on the very sides, I kind of want to add a kind of a cartoon crease on each side. So I'm going to navigate right over here to the side. And what I'm first going to do is go to the clay strips brush, and then I'm going to go back and forth. And we're going to make kind of a cartoony crease there, kind of like a wrinkle because he's smiling. So his cheeks are kind of coming up and they're being pushed back. So go along there and add some skin there, which is kind of being pushed up like that. And then I want to add a crease there. So we can go back to the crease brush. So the crease brush is this one right here. And then I can just add a crease there. So just go back and forth, add a bit of a crease, and then make sure it connects with the mouth. So you can kind of crease the mouth and kind of connect it to make a big crease there. So now you can see it kind of has that kind of cartoony styly grin. I'm also going to hold down the shift key and smooth that out just a little bit. And then again, using the crease brush, I'm just going to define that crease. All right, so then right here, back behind this crease, I want to add another subtle crease. So I'm just going to go along here, add another crease, just a small one. And then I want to hold down the shift key and kind of smooth it out because I do want it to be pretty subtle. I don't want to be able to see it too well, but just a small crease there. All right, let's zoom out here and see how that is looking. So there we go. Now he has a nice kind of cartoony grin there. And then one more thing that I want to sculpt is a little chin. So let's do that. So again, use the crease brush, and we're going to go over here, and I'm just going to kind of crease around. We're going to make kind of a little dimple or a chin there, kind of like right above the chin, and then hold down the shift key, just smooth it out a little bit. And you could also go right here to the clay strips brush, and I'm just going to go along here and just add a little bit more clay to kind of pop that out, and then hold down the shift key and kind of smooth that out a little bit. So there we go. Now he has kind of like a little dimple there. Maybe just smooth it out a little bit more because I don't want it to be too strong, but something like that is pretty good. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to click right here to go back to the layout, and then I'm going to press Control S to save the Blender file one more time. So this is going to finish it up for the sculpting. So the sculpting of the character is finished. So this is going to be it for part 1, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've been enjoying this so far. And in part 2, we're going to do all the rest of the modeling, so we're going to model the teeth and the tongue and the eyes and the hair and also the eyebrows, and so by the end of the next part, all the modeling will be finished. And then in the last part, in part 3, we are going to be doing the lighting and the materials, and we will render the image and then do a little bit of compositing. So I will be uploading one part each day of the tutorial series, so if you'd like to watch the next part, it's going to be right up there on the end screen, and also I will have the link in the video description when it is released. And also in the video description, I'll have links to my Gumroad store and my Patreon page and the YouTube memberships if you'd like to help support what I do. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next part, part 2.